So, uh, good afternoon, friends. My hearty welcome to all the participants and also the eminent panelists. Uh, this is the fourth webinar National Insurance Academy is having in the last 4 weeks. This time, the subject we have chosen is something very interesting, very important, which is customer service in this COVID era, new paradigm. Customer is important for any organization and more so for an insurance industry. We in the general insurance industry have always prided ourselves in delivering great service to the customers. And it's very important in a country where insurance penetration is not anything to talk about. So we have chosen this topic. There have been quite a few webinars in the market, but we realized that there is nothing, there has not been any discussion on this subject, especially at this point of time when customers could, in a way, be faceless and voiceless. So I welcome once again all of you to this interesting webinar. We have very eminent panelists, Mr. Girish Radhakrishnan, who is Chairman cum Managing Director of United India Insurance Company Limited, Mr. Tapan Singhal, who is MD and CEO of Bajaj Allianz General Insurance, Dr. Sandeep Dadia, who is MD and CEO of Aditya Birla Brokers. All of them are very well known, so I'm not going to introduce them anymore. Friends, the last 2-3 months have been very unusual for all of us. This COVID virus has turned the world upside down. We can't shake hands with our friends. People are really, running away from close relatives and friends. It's something, we would not have imagined 3 months back that we'll be living in a world like this. The virus has no vaccine, no cure. Everyone is saying that we'll have to live with the virus for some more time till a cure is found out. The vaccine has infected almost 6 million people across the globe. Almost 400,000 people are already dead. And not only it's a health crisis, it's also now creating an economic crisis. Most of the countries have tried lockdown, total or partial lockdown, as a way of dealing with the virus. And today we are realizing that all the countries are coming out of the lockdown because they feel that the economic crisis is very serious. The global economy is expected to get into a deep recession in the current financial year. India also has a serious economic crisis on its hands because the last 2 months of almost total lockdown in most parts of the country have really created a huge economic problems for everyone. The expectation is in the current financial year, India will also go into a recession, kind of a negative growth of around 5% is being predicted by many economists. So if I really look at if I have to look at the future, next 3 to 6 months, which I feel is the period, on a very optimistic way, I feel that next 3 to 4 months, the virus goes away or we find a cure. There is going to be at least a partial lockdown in major cities. India, fortunately, the rural areas are relatively less impacted, but the big cities where most of the GDP is generated, where a lot of economic activity happens, is hot spots and there are problems. So I expect partial lockdown at least in major cities. Mobility is going to be difficult. Reluctance to move around is going to be there. Even if government says people can move around, I think people are going to be reluctant. Today, people can travel by air, travel by train, but then, people are not going to be very keen to travel. They will only travel if it is absolutely necessary. So travel is also going to be less. Technology is going to be used more and more. And today, everyone is using technology. There is, in fact, a tremendous amount of technology use in everything. So there's going to be virtual meetings, digital service. So everything is going to be through technology. So this is going to be there at least for next to 3 to 6 months. If you look at the general insurance industry, like any other segment of the economy, general insurance industry is also going to be impacted in the current year. The month of April, we have seen a drop in the premium of the sector. Of course, thanks to fire portfolio, which has seen an increase in premium, the drop has been moderated, but the retail segment has been very badly hit. So what I really see is, apart from business, the investment income is also going to be hit because the stock market has dropped almost by 25%. Interest rates are also dropping. So the investment income of the insurers, which is an important part of their profits, is also going to take a hit. So in this scenario, I mean, we will have to see how we handle our customers. As I said, customer is a very important person. I mean, we can't ignore him, even though there is a lockdown at this point of time. So the questions which we will be focusing in this webinar is, how is the customer adapting to this scenario? How is he getting a good service? Is he getting himself properly insured? Are claims being settled in time? And what problems he faces in the whole process at this point of time? And is the industry in a position to appreciate the difficulties and come out with solutions? So these are some of the points we will focus in this current webinar. So with this opening comments, I will move into the discussion part. And as I always say that I have a very easy and pleasant task of raising issues and leaving the panelists to respond to it. So I'll start with Girish first. Girish, this is a question to you. We are in a new world. Of course, the first question is in a way common to all the panelists to get their perceptions, kind of opening comments. So there is social distancing, work from home. How are you dealing with it as an individual and also as an organization?
That is the big question, sir. We are in a different world. As you said, everything has changed. And the one thing that we can, I think, say for certain is that we are not going to go back to the pre-COVID world. What we have today is going to continue for the foreseeable future, and we are going to change in so many ways. We have already changed. Now, as to how we have dealt with this, as an individual, I am a fairly phlegmatic person. I don't get rattled very easily, so I manage. For organizations, I would guess the other panelists would also agree with me. For organizations, it has been a huge challenge. For a company like mine with 14,000 employees, 2,000 plus offices, and about 1,75,000 clients spread across the whole country, it has been a huge challenge. But we immediately set up a crisis team at the head office to look at the problem and to find out solutions and suggest answers to vexing problems. So that's how we started. So we issued guidelines for work from home on the very day when the lockdown was announced by the government. We got in touch with the major brokers. We got in touch with some of the major clients at all operating offices. They were instructed to talk to clients, as many clients as possible, and tell them that things are not going to end. Business isn't going to be shut down. We will continue to function. We will look after you. So offices in containment areas were closed immediately, completely. In other offices, we worked with skeleton staff. In charges mostly did attend office. We used something like 4,200 VPN connections to allow people who work from home, who do critical functions. In the offices that were open, we have put in safety protocols like distancing, only partly staffed, that is something like 30 to 50% at the most in each office, so that distancing can be maintained. Hand sanitizers at various points in every office. No meetings unless prefixed, no visitors unless prefixed. Thermal temperature scanners at every office and the works. I mean, these are all common matters of wisdom which all of us are practicing. So we did all of those. We encouraged our agents to mostly use portals. There were quite a few agents who are not very comfortable with using the portals. We asked them to do that also. And we quickly mentally got into this frame of mind where we could comfortably talk to each other, conduct meetings with clients, with agents and intermediaries, and among ourselves by video conferencing. So I'm very happy and a little proud to say that in a couple of weeks' time, we got into an even keel, and that is continuing. We all recognize the fact that this is going to continue. This is going to be the norm. We are not going to, like I said, go back to those pre-COVID days. So all said and done, I'm fairly satisfied. Of course, one is never satisfied. I have some of my mentors in the industry have taught me that there is always a better way to do the things that you have done. But generally, yes, we have done fairly. I think we have reacted fairly well to it. And I mean, probably Tapan would also agree, as a fellow insurer, that we have the industry and the companies have reacted fairly well to what has essentially been a black swan event.
Okay, thank you, Girish. I just moved to Tapan, but before I request Tapan to respond, just a request to all the participants. Whatever questions you have, you can start putting in the Q&A box, question answer box, which is there. So we will take it up at the end of the panel. Tapan, I'm coming to you. Of course, the same question. Of course, both of us are in the same place, which is not a great place at this point of time from COVID point of view. So how are you managing?
Thank you, boss. I think first and foremost, Pune has lovely weather, and lovely weather virus also likes. So if you look at, anybody comes to Pune, first 6 months they catch all viruses, and then they get immune to it. So now we have COVID, so obviously it is the maximum impact place, and that is how it is. Now coming to the personal front, I think more than me, I have to ask my wife, how is she coping? Like for me, it's fine. 20 days a month I have been traveling. And all her life she kept on saying, "Kabhi to ghar pe raho, kabhi to ghar pe raho." And now I'm saying, "Ab ghar pe hu, ab to main ghar pe hu." I think it's going to reverse now. She starts saying, "Kabhi to office jao, kabhi to office jao." So I think it's been a huge shift. And I told my wife, never pray for such things. No, you prayed that I should be at home. Now I'm at home. Yeah, now let's handle this. I think okay. On a serious note, the good part for us was, and that we saw in the world as COVID was spreading. Countries were locking down, Italy, Iran. Yeah. So I had a meeting with the team. I said, prepare for lockdown. And the team, as usual, said, boss, is a bullshit idea. India is different. Summer is coming, immunity is high. We will not be like Italy. The demographic, the average population is low. I said, what's the harm? What do you lose in preparing for something? Nothing happens good. We'll just check how our BCM is working. So you'll be happy to note was that before the lockdown was announced, we actually went into a lockdown, work from home. So we shifted computers. We actually took laptops on rent because it was not available. So we said, let's take for 3 months. The idea was 3 months because that was a cheaper rate that we could negotiate. So we took, so it was not that we thought it would be 3 months or so. We just thought, okay. And we took, we allowed our staff to buy, the connections for internet, and the 3 month was the best package we could get. So we said, okay, take for 3 months. Let's try it out. Whatever happened. So we actually went into work from home, and then the lockdown got announced. So for us, the transition was very, very smooth. You will also be happy to note that in the lockdown period, we issued 29 lakh policies, completely with no office open. And we settled about 17 lakh claims, no office open. So fundamentally, we look at insurance companies, to say that insurance companies are not digitally prepared is the wrong word. I think like Mr. Radhakrishnan also mentioned, it took some time, but now he's so confident, so happy that he's able to serve his customers well. And I remember I had been to Singapore before this virus attack, and I was trying to figure out in Singapore how insurance companies are operating. A digitally advanced country like Singapore, 95% of insurance companies' work was on paper. So the point was that we had the tools, adoption was not happening. People were comfortable with paper, people were comfortable with the usual style, which is it. COVID somewhere forced that adoption to happen, and it happened at hyper speed. I was amazed at the rate at which adoption happened of the tools that we had created. I think one of the common debates we always had in the steering committee meetings was that we made these tools, but what is adoption? Hardly, like we said, you can assess your claim on the spot and we'll pay you claim within 20 minutes of a motor accident within the IRDAI stipulated limits. Adoption was very low. Suddenly with COVID, it has shot up. or the policy issuance, you could buy a policy through WhatsApp or buy it digitally or through a portal. No, so many things were there. 28 lakh policies we issued in the lockdown period, no, and so many claims we settled. It was very, very smooth. Now that was the easier part. There are two things which is getting more difficult now. First and foremost is the mental health of employees. Again, we have a huge number of employees, about 10,000, and large distribution, large number of partners, huge number of agents. The issue is it's easy to talk about working from home. It's easy to talk about being at home. But the reality is insurance has predominantly been a high technical or a high sales driven organization. People, and it's a conversational sale. So you look at the insurance industry, the kind of relationship that insurance people have, including all of you, is huge. And if we sit down and start asking relationship or look at the phone that you have, I'll be surprised if you're less than 10,000, 15,000 contacts, minimum. That is how we have been. All our lives, we have been meeting people. We have been talking to people. We have been going, seeing people. Now, suddenly you are put in the confine of home. This is not what you're used to. Maybe a manufacturing industry or where the physical contact or touch is less could still be different. People would be used to it. But for an insurer, it is very, very difficult. So what we did initially again was that we got for our people and partner a hotline to psychologists and psychiatrists, completely free. And we said that come what may, we'll not take any data. Just the only data I asked them is what is the percentage of people that we had allowed access to, how many people have reached out. You'll be surprised to know 33% people have reached out. So this is a bigger issue. The excitement of a challenge, the excitement of trying to serve our customers, and our employees are also our customers from a perspective of leadership. We should be clear about it. How do we serve them that they remain happy and they are able to reach out? Because as most of us know, mental health does not happen like a switch. It's a buildup of emotions over a long period of time, which is not, if catered to, can lead to a serious problem. So that was the next thing that we immediately did for our people and partners, that you can reach out, talk to people. The third challenge was, how do I engage my people and my partners and keep the morale high? Because people are scared. Even today they're scared. You'll be surprised to see the amount of scare which is there. In fact, there was a joke which I was reading that COVID may kill less people, scare will kill more people. I think that is how they are prepared, that people are scared. And again, I said, okay, let's try something which is very time tested. Let's try Antakshari. It sounded very stupid then, but you would be surprised to know just a simple thing like Antakshari over Teams and celebrating birthdays, anniversaries in the evenings. Every day we have a kind of celebration time around 7:38, where the birthdays of our people are celebrated, or partners celebrated, anniversaries get celebrated. So keeping the moral high, the spirit high, ensuring that each customer is serviced to the highest peak. And also the last phase is if somebody gets COVID. Now, if somebody gets COVID, the scare is so high that people are running away. Well, it's amazing. And at the end of the day, somebody is ill. And that somebody was somebody whom we knew, who is close to us. You can't run away. As insurers, we have such a huge network of hospitals, doctors, of ambulances. What use of having such a network if we can't serve somebody who falls ill? Then we set up an entire network management, that what would we do if somebody falls ill? How do we reach out to that person? How do we ensure that he or she gets a proper medical care, and how do they get? In fact, one of my employees in Delhi did contact COVID, but I'm happy to announce that he's recovered, he's back. One of my agents is contacted. So this is a new reality. People are going to get infected. The point you said, if there's no solution and every day cases are multiplying, the harsh reality is people are going to get infected. Before I close, I was in a webinar with some of the pharma heads, global heads, and they said the vaccine may take 1.5 to 2 years. I told them, let it be. In 2 years, we'll develop herd immunity. We don't require a vaccine. If vaccine has to come, it should come now. What do you do with a vaccine in 2 years' time? So it's actually, the situation is, the next phase is more crucial. The initial euphoria, initial servicing of customer, reaching out, transformation, all that was easy. A long, prolonged time of isolation, a long, prolonged time for mental health. People are going to get infected, is a harsh reality. How do we cope with that and prepare for that is the next big question that we should be ready for. Right. That was from my side.
Thank you, Tapan. I move to Sandeep. Sandeep, I mean, as an intermediary, you are more in touch with customers.
Yeah.
So how are you? I mean, are your customers, you are seeing your customers, or how are you managing it?
So in fact, we have actually, for our customers, we have built up an engagement index. So in fact, our engagement index with our customers is one of the highest in last whatever 7 or 8 years in my career in Aditya Birla Insurance Brokers. So what we've done is we have started multiple concepts for customers. So we started with know your policies. So those who have taken on the commercial line side, those who have taken additional policies on or any other policies, most of the clients do not know what they have bought. So we've gone into details of all the clients, right? If they have taken mega policies or if they have taken some kind of bespoke wordings, if they've taken those standard tariff product in terms of wording tariff, all those customer engagement tools we have done. One is of course training the customers. Second thing is we have kept, and like what Mr. Radhakrishnan as well as Mr. Singhal both said, we have kept our employees' morals extremely high. So we started with the basic thing is one very basic, that our salary cycle ends on, and we gave it on 30th or a day before the next month. We started paying on 25th, so that employees started feeling the comfort from day one. As senior management, we are meeting on a daily basis to check the employee health, and every of my direct reportees, that is the team leaders, the senior management team, is supposed to take care of their people. And we are having virtual coffee sessions on almost a daily basis across the teams. We've kept our employees also pretty busy, because we are also of that belief that if 21 days a person doesn't do anything, that becomes a habit. So we didn't want 21 days of laziness seeping into the employees. I mean, it's inevitable. It's bound to happen. And believe me, today, I can very well say all of us were initially giving 8 to 9 hours. Currently, we are giving probably 10 to 11 hours. None of us are tired. In fact, more and more energetic. So like Tapan said, 6 of our front-end IT systems and digital systems were underutilized. Today, we can proudly say most of our systems are 90+% utilized. So we launched some kind of an additional dealer app, that is, we are dealing through nearly 5,300 dealers across the country. A single unique solution on the mobile app where the sales, renewals, his M-Passbook, his E-Passbook, his GST, everything is on a single window, on a single app. For the corporate customer, we have launched a corporate dashboard, which is an end-to-end solution, and that also has the capability of replacing the emails. So now we are absolutely tracking each and every conversation of every customer. We have launched our new project, that is the e-consultant or the virtual consultant of industry-wise what a customer should be buying. We have an AI tool which is ready in 30 odd products, and we are launching it across. Currently under the UAT phase, and I think hopefully we should be able to launch it in the next 3 months. So likewise, multiple things we have done. On the company front, of course, what we've done is we made 3 scenarios as to what is going to be our profitability for the entire year. If there is a COVID hit, we are going to take at 70% or 30% of profitability compared to what we were last year and compared to the budgets. So we have tried to see that we maintain a healthy cash flow so that the company doesn't have to lose because of a cash flow issue. Of course, we are part of a large group, so that is lesser of a concern, but each of the companies treated in its own manner. So our cash flow has been nicely protected so that we are able to grow. When the competition gets probably weaker, we are there to grow the market, and we are there to grow our own company. So on the capex, from the company front, we are definitely committed towards our capex, and we have said our capex are into 3 parts now. So what was already promised, we are continuing. The must to have, we are continuing. We may take a call after 3 months after the COVID recovery. So we've taken a very conscious call across all the platforms in terms of the financials, the HR activity. The overall company knowledge, our last year, our total average man days of training were nearly 3.2 days per employee in our company. Currently, it would have gone to more than 3 times, 9 days in last 60 days. So every employee has been upgraded in their own knowledge across all the products. So that is actually, and we probably think that this will help us in a longer way to take things forward. Few things which we have realized that, work from home is going to be a new norm. So what does it mean to be work from home? For an employee to work from home, is he going to be just sitting home and chatting on the VC? No, that is not what it is. So how an employee is going to remain productive when he remains at home, and how a manager is going to manage an employee who is working from home as well as when the manager is working from home. So those norms we have and matrices we have developed, we have nearly crossed 70 odd projects, and our grand total of last 2 years is 17 projects, and in last 2 months we have completed 17 projects. So it has been a beautiful utilization. Our concentration on the business was mainly on the renewals. We procured, I can proudly say, almost 98-99% of the renewals on the commercial line side. In fact, we added nearly 20% of customers. On the retail side, the renewal ratio is more than 120% of what it was last year. But of course, on the fresh acquisition of the new customers, it was difficult because the motor sales had dropped down. So that has not taken place. So overall, I think even in reinsurance field and in commercial lines field, I think we've done quite satisfactory compared to the market. In retail, we have taken a small beating, but that is across the industry. But our norm is only one: if industry has suffered a loss, let us suffer a loss which is slightly lesser than the industry. So that is where we see our benchmark at this moment, and probably we'll come out very fast. Our BCP was absolutely in place. So, we were probably one of the few institutes who have a very robust business continuity plan in place. So, right from the IT capability to manpower capability to the VPN network to all the data, everything. On retail side, we've facilitated more than 1 lakh of a claim in last 2 months, mainly health and motor, few of them, but mainly health. On the commercial line side, when we're dealing with insurers, and our insurers have been really supportive to us. Large claim and as low as the highest claim settle was nearly 35 odd crores in these times. And thanks to our technology, because we are maintaining an end-to-end flow between the customer, the insurer, the surveyor, and our systems and the employee. So that has really helped us, and nearly 44 plus systems are linked together internally to service our customer better. So we've done lots. Of course, on the personal front, I had encouraged everyone to upgrade their knowledge and just use the travel time which they save in upgradation of their own personal knowledge. Personally, I was slightly weak in social media, so I've started concentrating, and I've done some research, and I can't say I've become an expert, but I'm definitely more literate than what I used to be, maybe more than 3 times literate than what I was in social media. And otherwise, books, and on personal front, done a lot of additional philanthropic activity in the last 2 to 3 months. So really dedicated a lot of time to serve the poor and the needy. So that's what we've done across in last 2 months. I can say every minute has been utilized. And but on the lighter side, yes, now I've got 2 bosses. Initially, I used to have only 1.
Good.
I'll
Girish.
Just before we forget that, I just read this somewhere that a customer was very irritated and he told this employee, "Can I speak to somebody higher up?" No, because you're not able to handle. So employee says, "Aji sunti ho, matlab koi tumse baat karna chahta." So that is what doctors to bosses would be.
I'll come to Girish. Girish, this is for you. Let me again come back to the customer. As Tapan said, we are always used to, giving a personalized service. Our selling was always conversational. Okay, digital is fine, but I mean, are we really able to, give a good service to the customer, or he's just doing what he was doing, just maintaining status quo, just paying his premium, keeping his policies valid? How do we handle this? Service really, I mean.
Yes, sir. It's true. Insurance has always been bought and sold across the table with 2 people face to face. More so in retail, of course. And this is the key difficulty that we now have. We have, of course, put our messages on social media, on our Twitter handle, on our website, and this would be, addressed to the whole market in general, to everyone. So how does an individual customer still get the feeling that he is important, that he as an individual is being looked at by the insurer? So we have, and that is important, like you pointed out and like Tapan pointed out earlier, that is very important for the retail client. We have sent individual SMSs to practically every single customer whose policies are either due for renewal or coming up in the next certain period of time for renewal. Our people have called up people on the phone and talked to them, and as usual, they would have typically got back a feedback of concerns of the clients themselves that, sometimes something as stark as, I don't have money to pay premium. Now, what am I going to do? That kind of questions have come to our branch managers or development officers or client facing officers. So we have done that. We have directly contacted customers through whatever means possible, by telephone, by texts. We have done it through agents, which again would be something that closely approximates a personal contact, but which gives the customer some relief that someone is directly talking to him. We have had apart from the toll-free helpline, we have created 2 new helpline teams, and we had volunteer officers who were round the clock at the phones, listening to customer feedback, customer complaints, customer inquiries. So that was something that continues to be one of those things which I think keeps the customer in a certain degree of comfort. Policies continue to be sometimes sent by post, but mostly sent online now. So this practice we earlier had of actually handing over a policy or chatting face to face across the table, that is truly missing now. That is something which should exercise us a bit, I think, for when we talk about customer service. But we have, I think, dealt with it fairly well under the limitations that we have.
Girish, I just have a follow-up question on this. Because I hear from many of the customers, especially the corporate customers, they say, we have continued with the same insurer, same intermediary, same sum insured. So is there an issue? I mean, because they may not realize it now. Maybe after some time they have not updated the sum insured. They have not really looked at the risk much more closely. How do we handle it? Because it's going to be there for quite some time.
So there is no way you can, stop talking to customers or, tamp down the level of interaction that you have with customers. That will have to continue. And we have had customers calling us, and we have also taken initiative from our side to talk to corporate customers, particularly like Sandeep mentioned earlier about this is the time when you can look at what you have insured. Coincidentally, just these last 2 days, we have been talking to one of our major corporate clients because they have to now budget for paying a large premium during this very difficult time when their own business is in serious trouble and they don't have a cash flow at all. So that does happen on a fairly large scale. If we don't do that, we would be failing our duty as insurers. We do talk to clients, sometimes on our own initiative, sometimes on the client's initiative, talk about the policies, talk about, it has to be said at this point, a lot of queries do come in about whether my business interruption cover, for example, it would respond to the problem that I'm facing now. So these kind of questions are exercising the mind of clients, and it is our duty, our responsibility to deal with them, to talk to them and explain these matters to them.
Okay, I'll go to Tapan now. Tapan, I just want to understand the technology part in a little more detail, because digital is helping all of us. So how is it actually playing out? Because one thing I'm always concerned is how do we evaluate a risk? Because we can't go and see a risk, and we have not reached the situation of drones doing a risk inspection in our country. So how do we really handle this?
Okay, interesting question, boss. I think there are 2-3 more which I see from the Q&A. So I'll just read them out and put this in perspective and answer all. We have Sridhar from New India saying that can we do away with spot inspection? And there's some saying that will we move to paperless, and should the regulator launch a common app? So, okay, let me answer your question along with this question and answer which has come up in the live Q&A, and let's see how do we do that. Okay, So first and foremost, boss, I think when you spoke about customer service in the initial stage, and you mentioned that no, we have very low penetration in the market. Now we have been insurers for many years, and irrespective of which company, if I speak to an insurer, a hardcore insurer, he or she is always convinced that the products are amazing. They are. Imagine health insurance for 5 lakh cover you're selling for, let's say, 8,000 rupees, 9,000 rupees. The person pays premium for 30 years, he doesn't pay the sum insured. And once he falls ill, the whole sum insured is gone. Unbelievable product. Huh? The car insurance, you go to US, you get at about 10 to 25% is the range of the IDV of the car vehicle. In India, you get it for 1.25. No, imagine amazing products insurers have. I get surprised. Why should people not queue to buy insurance? Well, that is the way when I look at the product and the pricing and the benefit, the question which comes to mind is people should be queuing to buy insurance. Well, it is so amazing, but it doesn't happen. No. Now the problem, and I was thinking, why is it so? No, why is there so much distrust? And you talk to an industry with a combined ratio. I've spoken many times, 120%. And the person, common person on the street, you ask him, what's your view of insurance company? He'll say, "Sale chore claim nahi dete." No, imagine, yeah. Industry is bleeding to death paying claims. The products are amazing. People should queue to buy up. Perception of customer is insurance company does not pay claims. No, I think let's start fundamentally from there. It starts with the same logic, which is there that the onus of the industry has been that it takes money from many to pay to a few. And the question you asked, how do you assess the risk? How do you pay claims which is not fraudulent? So that you do not do away with the trust of millions of people who paid the money to you. No. Now, in that problem solving, the industry has gone overboard in trying to ensure that the moment somebody lodges a claim, we see the person as a thug. So we start eliminating one by one, no, that before, and then once he's proven honest, we pay the claims. Industry does right. But from a customer experience, this is the shittiest experience that you can ever have, no? That if this is the way you're going to be treated, like which industry treats you the more, let's say go to buy a, let's say whatever, let's say an apparel, a cloth or a shirt, and the shopkeeper sees you like a thug who will run away with the shirt and does all the parameters to stop you from running with the shirt, and finally you are able to buy a shirt. Now, will you go to a shop to buy a shirt? And then we say that no, we don't have insurance penetration. It is we in trying to protect millions of people's money have set up procedures which kills the very basic purpose of an insurance company. No, now that is where we have to start with trust, and we have to use automation. 400 years back, 16th century, this was fine. There's no automation. You had to send a surveyor, you had to send somebody, the guy had to go look at reports, come back, give you reports, take an assessment based on what is visible to one individual who's going at the lost site and giving. Today, you don't require that. So let me tell you one problem how we solve. The biggest claims is motor, own damage. Yeah, a huge number of claims in the industry. That's the biggest one. So about 4 to 5 years back, I was telling my team, we should settle motor claims on the spot and based on the picture taken by the customer. Simple. Now, how did we do that? See, we have been settling motor claims for so many years, and lucky for us, all our claims were digitally processed. So that means all the photographs were on the server, no, and all the location sites were on the server. So when somebody has an accident, he or she clicks pictures of his car using our app, we call it Caringly Yours, and he uploads, it hits the server, and then a match is happening at the location of a similar incident which has happened. And the assessment gets thrown. So right now we have an individual, an engineer who looks at the assessment, an expert who sits, and the machine is learning because as he or she keeps on feeding and he says it's fine, within 15 minutes of the incident, we actually get back to the customer and say, this is your loss, we have approved it. If okay with you, we transfer money to your account. The customer says yes, we transfer. And I should send you some testimonials. Customer super delighted. Now we have taken all that we do. We have a picture, we have the spot incident, we have the DL, RC clicked by the customer, uploaded, and at the background, we run all this machine learning and fraud analytics to ensure that the fraud is not happening. But from customer end perspective, all he sees is that he or she has clicked pictures, uploaded, and has got his money in 15 minutes time. In fact, one of the suggestions which I gave to IIDA chairman is that in today's time, the limit that we have set for requirement of survey should be waived. let's say we have a loss of a resort because of the storm which has happened. For a boundary wall collapse, the sum insured, the limit given by IRDA gets breached. So we have to get a survey. Why can't the owner just send, which is already sent us, a video of the loss? And we already have so many experts settling claim files all their life, 20, 30 years, and how many boundary losses have they settled? Can't they have a fairly good idea of what the losses and offer to the customer and pay the money? The customer should go and get it repaired. In today's COVID time, how would you send a survey? How would he or she go? When will he go? How will the poor guy get his repair done? No. Trusting the customer at the face of it, enhancing customer experience, using digital tools, and then getting the machine to learn over a period of time, using your massive database of claims that you have settled, is the way forward when a customer will truly respect the industry for paying claims on time. No? I think that is the thinking that we have to look into, and we have been doing it. And when you luckily both are in Pune, someday when we sit together, I'll show you the experience of the customer is very, very different. No? So I think it has to change in our mind. We have to start with the fact the customer is right. No, we trust the customer, and obviously run algorithm in the background. But from a customer perspective, the moment he has an unfortunate incident, we should pay up. One last thing before I close, which I really like, we did a mobile insurance with one of the e-commerce players. We insure him at 4 lakh mobiles a day, across the country, left, right, and center. Obviously, claims are happening. We are remotely assessing the claim of the mobile and paying it. The NPS score, which is a parameter, and for the industry, the NPS score is about 38 to 40. That is the average. For this settlement that we do was 95. In e-commerce, they never had such high NPS score. And in fact, the lockdown period, you'll be amazed to know, boss, that our grievance ratio, it was 100 before lockdown, is 10 now. It has dropped 90%. So when we use digital and we use trust and you use them well, I think customer really appreciates the effort done. Was that is how we have been handling.
Tapan, just a follow-up question on this. It's about your internal customers, employees. Yeah. So employees are all working from home. So will they ever come back to office, or they would like to continue to work from home? Even if
I look at myself, my wife will throw me out of home if I stay some more time. Yeah, so I have no other way but to go to office. Okay, jokes apart, boss. Yeah. In one of my talks, which was on HR leaders, I mentioned the same thing. Let's say if I'm employed in Mumbai and Delhi, and every day of my life, I spend 2 hours going to office minimum, and 2 hours coming back from office. 4 hours of my waking time, which would be about 1/4 or 1/5 of my waking time. That means that 1/4 of my life I'm wasting in traffic. Why would I not work for an organization which allows me the privilege of working from home, and I'm able to deliver? You heard what Dr. Dadia mentioned, that they are delivering more than what they were doing earlier. So if the employee is delivering more, and if he or she wants to work from home, we have to make work from home protocols. We have to, today there's no boundary. I think that is the bad part. So we get up in the morning, we start working, and when it's time to go to sleep, we go to sleep. Now, this is ridiculous. You can't work from home like this, it's like slavery. You can't have something like this. So creating those norms, those barometers, the privilege to employees to work from home as an option that they can take. In fact, I already told my people, and you'll be again happy to know that only Devu yesterday I talked with the head HR. I said, please circulate to employees. Those who decide to work from home, more than happy. But we'll free up the commercial space that we have. Because then why pay rent for the desk when we are going to move to this? So I've already given the option to employees. Those who want to come to office, more than happy. Because that is nothing that we should do. It's individual choices. So in major metros, boss, I see that people may want to work from home, because it's a huge nightmare traveling. And you have been in Bombay, so you know pretty well. But you are one of the privileged ones which had a beautiful house in Malabar Hills, but most are not. So they have to really come from very, very far. And that is why I think it's an option-based thing we should look for. But we have to first make the protocol very clearly defined. We can't have people really working like slaves. That's also not the right thing to do. And then I think way forward, organizations which give this benefit to employees will attract good talent, is my belief.
Okay. Like Tapan said, I think the offices will be physically downsized a little. We will probably be looking at hot desking, where people who need to come into office for a particular thing would use a particular workstation and then go back to working from home on a regular basis. Yes, I think that we would probably see that.
Yeah. Okay. Sandeep, I come to you. I mean, we were talking about technology. I'm just taking it forward a little further. So generally, there's a perception that intermediaries do not use much technology. So, I mean, how are they managing at this point of time? Do you have enough money to spend on technology, get enough margins, or you get more than that?
So I'll not say the number at this moment what we have spent so far, but in last 8 years what we have spent is probably higher than I don't say all, but many of the insurers. So we have nearly 40. Our technology team size is nearly 12% of my total manpower is technology. Our second highest spend in the company, or probably actually if I count capex and opex together, it's the second highest spend in our company after the employees, not the cost of real estate and nothing else. And that's a significant number. The number of softwares and IT platforms where we have our own source code are nearly 23. And why I'm saying 23, because these softwares are not available easily in the market, and I have not seen it anywhere in the world. So we have front end system, the back end system. So right from the robotic process automation for the employee benefit endorsements to the claims invoices and generation and payouts for the MISP, we have a complete robotic process automated solution. On the e-consultant, as I told you earlier, we have an e-consultant which is working on the artificial intelligence, as well as there is a huge machine learning which has gone inside. So our knowledge, which was, in fact, I tell our people that last year you were better than the system. This year the system is much more intelligent than what you are. And in 5 years, we are going to have the most intelligent systems what we can produce. So none of it's the collective intelligence which has gone inside the system. So in fact, in corporate, like give you an example, the employee benefit. If the client goes through our system, only cashless he has to depend from the TPA system. Rest all is taken care on a single window. On the commercial line side, if the client logs into our system, right from the claims to claims intimation to the policy to the premium to renewal reminders, any query management, everything is on the system. And history. So client need not even maintain a dashboard. The client need not maintain the back office, accounting for the policy, nothing. Right from GST to everything. My systems are able to manage that. So in fact, if you see the backend side, probably we are one of the most high tech. We've not talked about it much in the market, but I think from this 2nd June onwards, we are launching an ABIBL 2. So which is one of the most high tech platform the country will see in the market. And I think 2nd June, we are releasing to most of our clients on the corporate side, eventually on the retail side also. Being a broker, we are issuing nearly 20,000 policies a day. So that's a significant number. And last year we would have done nearly 5 million policy counts. And the number of people managing those 5 million policies are less than 10 people on the back end. So that shows the efficiency under which we are working. So system point of view, we are very well interconnected. And one thing we have realized, because if we are not going to be, somebody is going to do it and somebody is going to cannibalize the market. Why not we do that? And we are not here to cannibalize the market. We are just here to, win, not to defeat anybody. We are here to win. So we will win those battles, and that's the reason from our CAGR in terms of the premium in last 7 years has been more than 55%. So that's been the level of growth of premium which we had in last 8 years, purely because of technology.
Right. Thank you. I go to Girish for the next question. Girish, I have 2 questions to you. One is there going to be too much digitalization? Do you see a risk in that? Is there a problem in that? The second question is, there are grievances from customers. I hear that claims are getting delayed in this lockdown period, maybe for real reasons. So how is the industry going to sort it out, especially on the corporate side? Maybe health we are taking care of, but other lines, there seems to be an issue. I think we need to accept that. I think you'll have to unmute. Girish, you'll have to unmute.
Sorry, sir. Yeah, digitization is the way forward. And I particularly liked Tapan's remark a short while ago. And I think Sandeep also mentioned that as to how we have speeded up the digitization and how we have used digitization, how we have used online transactions, made use of it much more than what we have been doing. In fact, I think we have leapfrogged across a distance in these last, say, 6 or 7 weeks, what we would have otherwise covered in maybe a year or even 2 years. In some companies, Bajaj is particularly digital savvy. So for them, maybe Tapan's company has leapfrogged something like what they would have done in the next 6 months, they have done in these 6 weeks. For other companies, it would be what they would have done in the next 2 years, they've already been forced to do over these 5 or 6 weeks. And this is not just in insurance, this has happened to all industries. So what we have done here in our industry is just a reflection of what has been happening in other industries also. Newer customer segments are getting comfortable with online transaction. And this obviously means that if you are a digital laggard, you will be wiped out of the market. So this is a lesson for all insurers. We have absolutely no choice other than to increase the digitization that we have. And this does pose challenges. Apart from technical challenges of your software vendors typically are also working from home. We have had a few glitches because of that. But we need to look at one or two big issues when we talk about suddenly increased digitization. And one is we need to fast track investments and efforts into analytics and AI initiatives for example, to track and manage frauds. We have found in the digital efforts that we took through a particular web aggregator that somebody typically found a very nice loophole to indulge in fraud. That kind of thing would probably multiply over a period of time if when we digitize on a large scale. And the companies which probably haven't invested in cloud would probably need to do that now because of physical server limitations and risks. We would need to invest in, I was talking to one of my GMs who's a little fond of jargon, and I was told that we might have to look at strengthening the tech talent bench. In English, I think that means we need to look at recruiting more technical people. We need to look at recruiting specialists in certain fields in technology. So these are issues that we would have to look at when we think of digitization. So your second part of your question was about
claims, delays in claims.
About delays in claims. And I think Tapan would agree with me. I don't think there is this perception that claims insurers are generally not very happy about paying claims. And during this time, insurers either are forced to delay claims because of inherent inefficiencies, problems with this lockdown, or they are using this to delay payment of claims or not paying claims. I think that is very far from the truth. Tapan would certainly support me. We have been paying claims. There have been, I'm very happy to report, no significant delay that we have been able to notice in payment of claims. We have adapted rather well to it. Again, like Tapan mentioned earlier, we have substantially dispensed with sending physical surveys for each and every claim. We are actually working on a new protocol for small claims up to a certain limit where we can totally eliminate manual work, physical work and paperwork. So we have settled, if I remember rightly, something like 150,000 claims in these last 2 months. Of course, over 1 lakh claims have been health claims, including COVID related claims, but we have also had a fairly large number of other claims. For example, about 18,000 plus motor claims, which were paid off without any hassle. So I don't think payment of claims has been delayed or seriously affected by this. There have also been issues where documentation is a problem, but we have developed protocols where soft copies are now the norm rather than the exception. So
Right.
there won't be, I don't think there has been a serious issue there, and I think the insurance industry has adapted rather well, responded rather well to these challenges.
Good to hear that. Fortunately, there's no customer on the panel here. Tapan, I come to you on, I mean, of course, just would like to very briefly hear your views on the claim settlement. Are there delays? The second part of the question is, there are customers saying, the month of April and May, vehicles were not used, and the fire risks have been silent. The insurance industry is going to make a huge profit in the current financial year. So would you give them some refund if they ask?
Okay.
I mean, don't answer if you feel it is too.
No. As I told you, for me, no question is uncomfortable, because I've been an insurer all my life. After being insurer, you reach a different level of spiritualism, like nothing is uncomfortable. So, okay, now let me try and answer your question on the refund part of it. Okay, so first let me give some data, then let me give some facts, and let me give what customers should do, those are not aware. Data is industry's combined ratio of motor is about close to 118 to 120%. Now, even for 2 months, if there's zero loss, still the industry will not make money, on a combined ratio basis. So to think that the industry is making huge money because this is going to be wrong. It may make less loss than what they used to make earlier, I think, if I look at the data perspective at zero loss. Now let's look at fact. In the tariff, if you look at it, the pricing is free, not the tariff. The tariff, you have provision for laid up vehicles. Now let's say the customer, and even all the customers who may be listening to this webinar, or insurers who are listening to this webinar, we should inform our customers that if they feel the next 3 months they'll not take out the vehicle, they should move to the laid up vehicle provision in the tariff. It is there. But if you have not used that provision, and after 2 months, if you have a loss, which there are quite a few losses, you heard Mr. Radhakrishnan mention that, he's already paid 18,000 motor claims. We also paid huge amount of motor claims. There are a lot of thefts which have happened. There are a lot of fires which have happened because of vaporizers, kept. And that's again, we should be very careful about all these hand rub alcohol-based sanitizers in the car have created huge losses of total losses. Losses happen. So now if a loss has happened, then obviously you had the provision of paying the premium. It was allowed by the ministry and the regulator. You pay the premium and take the loss. If a loss has not happened, then as it is, you're not going to pay the premium from backdated where it is. You may start a new policy and then you're not paid for 3 months that you know. So anti-selection is already happening against the industry. Now, the point remains is if there's a provision tariff for laid up vehicle, use it. And as Bajaj Allianz, we already launched a motor product under the sandbox where it says that you buy the number of kilometers you drive in a year. So let us say you say, Tapan, I can't say that my vehicle will laid up. I have to take it out sometime to go to to buy grocery or something, or sometime maybe to go to an office. So I can't do that. Fair enough. Then buy a motor product which we have on our website, or some of our partners are giving that, which says that you buy the number of kilometers you want to drive. So options are there, But to think that after you not exercise the option and if you have no claim, a refund should be made, and if a claim has happened, claim should be paid. Don't you think it's a bit too unfair, boss, to ask this question? Because when you have provisions which allow you to buy number of kilometers, which allow you to declare your vehicle for laid up, and you don't get charged for that time. So those provisions are there. I think it's awareness of customers. If you're not done, it's our fault. I have actually issued a lot of laid up vehicle policies to some of my key customers and those who ask for it. In fact, we would have issued for laid up vehicles close to 30,000 policies. So we've done that. So people have declared, and we have laid up vehicle provision made. And I think we already sold about 40 lakh worth of premium for pay as you drive. So aware customers are taking the right choices of buying policies, which allow them to mitigate this non-usage or less usage of car. So that is there. But after the risk has passed, then it is like at the end of the year, every year, customers come up who have no claim and say a refund should happen, and customer claim said, okay, you pay a claim. The industry can't survive as it is having a difficult time. Right. Now, the other point which comes through on the fire portfolio, to say that lockdown and silent, the risk is gone low. You've heard the entire huge controversy which happened in the 30-day lockdown period, no, where customers had to ask when the council put up a notice saying that no, the extension will happen naturally. Why do you think this condition is there in the fire policy? Because technically, if a risk has gone silent or no is not there, then there are certain precautions to be taken. Actually, if you watch on the day the lockdown was open, there were 4 major losses, no, including the Vizag van where the gas got leaked. What happened was after the lockdown, people just start their machine and then the machine has not been taken care of the way it should be, and the proper maintenance is done before you start the machine. And this is why the fire policy had that condition which says that if you have a 30-day lockdown or a 30-day silent period, you have to inform the insurance company and then they'll give you extension. No money is to be charged. No, the condition was put that the awareness would come on what has to be done. So as a company, what we did for all our commercial customers, we have sent advisories. Key, just don't go and switch on your machine. Let me make it in a simpler statement. If you have a motorcycle or a car and you don't use it for 4 months, do you just go and crank the car and start it off? No, it is going to get damaged. So the risk actually moves up. The lockdown not reduce the risk, and we have seen huge losses which have actually come when the risk has moved up. So I think if I look at the tariff provisions, if I look at solution insurance companies have enough solutions. As a customer, we should exercise those solutions. We should buy for a number of kilometers that we want to drive in a year, or we can declare a vehicle as laid up vehicle in advance, and obviously you get those benefits. That is how we should be handling this. Does it answer your question, Moss?
No, I will ask this question to Girish. Girish, I will ask this question. I agree with you. Yes, in normal times, yes, what Tapan says is correct. But these are extraordinary times. These are, you're locked down for 2 months. So, I mean, is there an opportunity for the customer to use those tariff provisions? Number one. Number two, is there a need to educate the customers? For example, this 30 days, which Tapan also mentioned, should the industry have, probably the industry realized it late, and a lot of customers are put into trouble because they were not advised. So in extraordinary times, should the industry have not been little more empathetic in telling the customer? Ultimately, the industry did. It's not that they didn't do that. And the third thing is about, restart protocols. Should the industry have educated the customers, though it is not bounden duty? So what is your view? Could the industry have done little more? That's my point.
Yeah, so my reply, I'm afraid, would be very short. What we now are talking about is hindsight wisdom. Like Tapan said, we did talk to a lot of our clients. We did educate them about startup protocols, about the 3-day lockdown, unoccupied premises issues, and all of that. Yes, we probably should have done it on a larger scale, maybe on an industry level scale. Probably the General Insurance Council could have stepped in and done something by way of a campaign. But yes, we did do a bit of work, but yes, I agree we should have done a bit more. This is, of course, hindsight. It is, you mentioned it's not our bounden duty to do that. I think it is our duty to do that. Morally, at least, it's our duty to do that. We should educate our customers better.
Okay, so Sandeep, I come to you as somebody representing the customer. So, what is your view on what Tapan said? You can disagree, not that you have to agree to. I think you have to unmute your. You have to unmute your mic.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of more points also. That unlike a retail premium, which is there, I mean, the commercial lines of there is already it's on risk, and many of the clients, because of the cyclone or because of so many issues, there are claims. So commercial lines is out of question where there is going to be a refund. So mainly the refund is going to be on the motor side, if it is there. But the customer is getting a no claim bonus. He's getting an NCB next year. He's getting a discount in the premium when he has not claimed. So if he feels that he has not claimed, he definitely can exercise that and he can get a better discount. So I think if there is no claim, and so India, there are so many policies, and if you see the incidence ratio of the claims, it's on the health side it is nearly 8 to 9%. On the motor side it is between 15 to 20%. On the property side it is less than 2%. 98% of the people still don't claim every time. That doesn't mean they're going to ask for the refund. So to be fair to the industry overall, if the industry is profitable, of course there is lots of scope. But I also do believe that the strength of our insurer has to be protected, and the very reason we will select an insurer which has got high financials. And if that financial is not protected, if they start refunding it to the premium, I am a little more worried, because the customers which are going to claim, how are they going to get the money otherwise if they're going to start? So for me, the balance sheet of an insurance company is as important like the CEOs would love their own balance sheet. So because it is good for our customers. So I would always request our customers to fall in love with the covers, the capacity, the cost, as well as the balance sheet of an insurance company. So that has to be healthy enough to be protected, and customers are protected if they are in safe hands.
Okay, I come to Tapan. Tapan, let's move to the product side. See, today, we have said that the pandemic is not covered in any of our policies, which is a fact, because there was never an intention to cover pandemic cover. Today, there is a demand for these extensions like standalone BI cover, because people have become wise after an event. So is the industry willing to give the covers?
I love your question, boss. One, you'll have to get me a good cup of tea, and whenever the lockdown is over. Okay, so let me answer this question of yours. First and foremost, it's a very interesting thing. Pandemic is not covered in all policies is a wrong statement, boss, because health policies have pandemic cover. Yeah,
right.
Which technically means that, let's say if I'm an Indian and we see the COVID moving ahead, and the average cost of COVID claims is coming on 2 lakh rupees. And even government hospitals, we have claims up to 5 lakh rupees, and some private hospitals charging up to 8 lakh rupees as and anybody can fall ill. It is very contagious.
Yeah.
So technically, boss, let us say if you are an average Indian, what would you do? And health policy has pandemic cover. So you should buy health policy, right? So which means that servers of all insurance companies should be crashing right now, because customers should be buying like crazy, health policies, 5 lakh cover, 10 lakh cover, and Mr. Dadia and me and Mr. Radhakrishnan should not be sitting here talking to you on a webinar Saturday. We should be trying to focus on how do we ensure that customers are able to buy health policies in India covering pandemic. Is it happening? In April, the retail health premium growth of the GI industry was -3%.
Yeah.
So what is the reason?
Let me come to the other part. Let me answer one question first, then I answer second. I said first, I will keep on charging cups of tea as we go forward. So let me answer the second one. Now, pandemic cover for industry, BI cover. A lot of companies are saying that BI cover for pandemic should be there. The US controversy, we all have read in the newspaper. Any insurer worth his salt would know the US controversy on pandemic, where right from the president, everybody is involved in that controversy. Yeah? So people should, BI should cover pandemic. I am saying right now, I have pandemic cover minus COVID. Right now. Yeah. Anybody who approaches me, sends me an email, I will get them a pandemic cover minus COVID. Well, obviously, when a house is on fire, you say, Tapan, insure my house now. It's too late. But your other houses, I'm ready to insure. So I'm making a statement and I'm live. So do you think, boss, that by time this webinar is on, my phone will start like buzzing like crazy, like all commercial entities of India will be calling up to get a pandemic cover? What do you think, boss? Like, what are the possibilities? I have that cover. So to answer your question, I'm ready to give a pandemic cover right now, minus COVID cover. Anybody on BI, like in health, we have pandemic cover. Anybody, buy it.
But Tapan, let me ask you.
Charged in health for pandemic, we are aware about it. Our health rates pre-COVID, post-COVID is the same, which means when COVID is on the rise, it should be there. There are two things to it. One, and this question I asked. To answer your second question, I asked one of my friends, but I get amazed, which I made a statement earlier also, people should be queuing to buy insurance, but I get amazed that doesn't happen. So obviously I was trying to find an answer, why does it not happen, to the point you said. And I spoke to one of my psychologist friends again. He told me the human brain is not wired to see risks. That is why we're not in caves. If our brain was wired to see risks, we would have been in caves. And that is why this problem is across the world is not an Indian problem. Across the world, people don't find insurance as the top priority. It is the least of priority when in reality it should be the top priority. No? So the wiring is not there. That is why insurance has been a conversational sale. You have to have a conversation, like the point I'm trying to make here, and people are listening. I'm sure that all of them should buy a health policy by the time this webinar is over. It is so important, and the premium is so ridiculously low. Why should you not have a cover? And you can all afford it. It's a conversational sale. And if you look at distribution of insurance companies, we are not set up very good distribution because conversation has to happen for the sale to happen. No, that's the human brain is not wired to see the risk on their own. On a conversation basis, understand it. The more we spread the distribution, the more spread the reach, the more it will become better. And that is why webinars like this, conversations like this, interviews, media, radio, we should use all, which I am. And that's why I make this very strong point. Why don't you queue to buy insurance? It is amazing. You have COVID on the cover, health policies have cover, we have the pandemic cover, for BI have the pandemic cover, buy it. Not when your house is in fire, then you can't say, okay, Tapan, now this house is burning, give me a fire cover. No, like the point you mentioned earlier, my claim didn't happen, give me a refund. That is not the way insurance works, no, unfortunately.
Yeah, so just a follow-up question. See, if, I mean, I agree COVID cannot be covered, but somebody wants a pandemic cover, does the Indian market have the capacity to provide those covers?
You have been a hardcore insurer all your life, boss. We have to get reinsurance. So we have some large reinsurers with the capacity and they're ready to provide for customers who want it. That's what I'm saying. I'm ready to give right now. Right now. Just send me a mail. I'll give you a BI pandemic cover minus COVID. I'm ready with it, with the solution. Okay. Just ensure that my phone crashes with all the requests.
Girish, I come to you. So how do you look at the insurance industry 6 months down the line? Will we be different or will we go back? If COVID goes away, will we go back to our old methods?
No, sir. I don't think COVID is going to go away. Indications are that it is going to be with us for quite some time. And as I mentioned during the initial few minutes, we are not going to go back to the pre-COVID world. We are learning new ways of working, new ways of delivering service to the customer. As to what the industry will be like 6 months from now, frankly, I will not hazard a guess. Somebody like Tapan will not hazard a guess, and I don't think somebody as thoughtful as Dr. Nadia will hazard a guess as to what it is going to be like. It is not possible to predict. I can only say that we live in interesting times, and I can only predict it's going to be difficult. Insurance is a very good barometer for the economy as a whole. So we have serious concerns about how the economy is going to function in the months to come. And general insurance also will be facing very tough times. But what I can assure the non-insurer people listening into this webinar is that the commitment of the insurance industry will not flag. We will continue to deliver to the best of our abilities. To supplement the earlier question posed to Tapan about pandemic specific covers, most Indian companies do not have capacity. That is a prime issue. We have very few reinsurers in the world who are ready to write this kind of cover. We did make very discreet inquiries, and the feedback we get is not very encouraging. Worldwide, the reinsurers are pretty conservative about this. I guess there will be a change in the mindset among major reinsurers, and that will percolate down as opportunities to the Indian market also. So maybe in a few months' time, we will see products that address this problem. As of today, I'm afraid no, we don't really have too many choices. There may be individual insurers in the Indian market who have products, but who have a small stable of reinsurers ready to back them. But I would hazard a guess that the cost of that is something which might turn away quite a few insurance seekers.
So, Girish, just a follow-up, small question. Do we need to create an Indian capacity like we did the terrorism pool, some pandemic pool? Is that a workable idea?
Many of the local insurers have been talking on those lines. The concept of pool suddenly became a bad word a short while ago due to various reasons. But I still believe, as a man who has dabbled a little bit in reinsurance, that a pool is a good idea. To pool capacities, to pool knowledge, and to pool administrative abilities is a very good idea. We might, in fact, I think we should talk on these lines among ourselves and with the regulator.
Right. So, Mr. Dadia, of course, we are overshooting our time, but just I'll take a few minutes. I mean, what is your perception on the product demand from the customers? As Tapan said, why is it people are not buying, good products? Why is it people are not buying health insurance? And also one more question, do you think the regulator or the industry, I mean, they have given some concessions like delayed payment of premium. Is there anything more the regulator can give to the customers? Every other industry has done. Should the insurance industry also do something more?
So I think there are a couple of things, and one point I would like to add on as a top-up point, what Tapan, as my friend, and as well as Mr. Radhakrishnan said. Now there are COVID covers at this time is not possible, but other pandemic covers are possible. Now there is a bigger risk at this moment, which is as big or probably bigger than a pandemic cover, is a cyber BI or any other non-damage business interruption. So far, in spite of now people are knowing the uncertainty, they know that the probability of an improbable loss is extremely high. None of them are still buying any of these because they are just waiting for a loss to happen. Then there is a demand which is going to be spurred. So I think this psychology of each and every customer trying to become an actuary and trying to predict his own losses, and that has to somewhere change. Else the customers are going to suffer a lot. Having said that, I think from the regulator side, initially there has to be a mid-term or a short-term solution and a long-term solution. I believe on the short-term side, if they can give some kind of leeway in terms of 64 relaxation, if possible. If not, at least some kind of leeway in terms of premium payment through installments, extension of the bank guarantee period, that will help a lot of companies to buy more insurance or at least sustain their insurance portfolio. Because my biggest worry is the customer should not opt for reducing the covers to save the premium cost. So that's my bigger worry. And in fact, it is going to be detrimental to the insurance industry per se, because if the customer is adequately insured and there is a loss, insurance company is going to suffer or reinsurers are going to suffer. If he is underinsured, still the industry suffers because we lose the trust. So I think in either ways, he has to get insured. So, and we are just thinking on one simple principle. If you can't cure, you endure and you secure and insure. So else, I think.
I'm tempted to end the webinar on this fine note, but then I have some question to ask to Tapan. Tapan, just two questions. One is you mentioned about the corona health claims. I think this is coming from the participants also. So there is a serious challenge. There is a feeling that hospitals are charging different rates, and there's a huge variation. And there is a lot of part of the claim is getting not admitted because the insurers say that this is not payable under the policy. And as the number of infections are going to go on, private sector is going to play an important role. How do we sort out this problem?
Okay, Vasu. I think right from the time you were also the CMD of New India, we have been talking of hospitals should come under regulations. No, it's amazing. Healthcare is completely unregulated. No, what are we talking about in this country? No, where we have so many requirement of a regulated healthcare. You can't have people charging whatever rates. Airlines have been told to cap their rates. No, in a COVID situation. Why can't hospitals be told? I think it's a serious point, and you raise a very strong point, Vasu, and I strongly feel that there has to be a clear government, kind of a circular mentioning that what is the rate that should be capped in all hospitals. Because COVID is not something in which people should make profits. No, as I told, the industry did not increase premium rate because of COVID. No, we in our policy did not say we'll shut down. Internationally, like Mr. Radhakrishnan said, most reinsurers, most companies said will not cover COVID. They have backed out. Indian insurance industry did not back out of covering COVID on health. We did not even increase price. How can we allow organizations to try and make profit from a pandemic situation, a crisis situation? The government has to step in. The government has to clearly mandate that this is what should be charged maximum. That's to answer your first question. I strongly support that view. In most forums, I've spoken about it also, that this has to be done. You can't allow profit making in a pandemic, in a crisis situation where the economy is going for a toss, people are dying. This is not the place to make money. No, that is the first point. The second point which you spoke about in terms of coverages being there. So people, when they're buying policies, should look at it. Let's say if I look at balance policies, we have cover for ventilator in the policy. There are some companies don't have a cover for ventilator. As an aware customer, please look at what you're buying. The company is covering a ventilator cover, which is the maximum expense for a COVID thing. So look at the policy. Does it cover what is there not? And then buy it. No, now it is not that the companies have withdrawn that cover. I think from very early on that policy did not have that cover. So it did not trigger a response there. And I think it is for them to see how they look at the policies. And like company like us had a ventilator cover from early on. So it is there. So when you're buying and you think that COVID is a risk for you, please look into what covers are available by companies. And that is where it can be done. And recently, the regulator also has issued some circular stating that we should look for a COVID cover like the policy that we had in terms of going forward. So as an industry, as a company, we are obviously doing it. But on hospitals, regulations, if not there, mandate from the government has to be there. Now, this cannot be a profit-making tool.
Tapan, this is the last question to you. How do you look at the future of the general insurance industry? This question coming from the participants, is there going to be a freeze on the recruitment of people? Everyone wants to know there will be more recruitments happening this year.
I think the question should not be, is it going to be a freeze on recruitment? The question is, what are the new skill set which will get recruited? I think, no, let's put the right question. So now let's look at, I have been a hardcore salesperson all my life, and most of us has been, insurance we have been. And so we are so used to, like when I'm talking to you, I'm saying, no, now we have 4 cup dues, with all your questions coming over. So that is a cup of tea used to be the center point of all our discussion, conversation. Now that skill set of mine has no relevance anymore. If I am not digitally savvy, if I can't solicit business digitally, if I can't service customers digitally, and if I do not know the protocol of using social media, we heard Dr. Dadia speak about that. He's now 3x his competence on social media. Actually, I'm seeing him now more and more on LinkedIn. He's posting ahead of me also, so I'm very impressed with all his hard work that he's doing. If we're not upgrading ourselves, not upskilling ourselves to be ready for what skills are required for the future, then you will not get a job, whether industry opens up or not. That is a different issue at all. So the first thing and foremost thing we're looking at a job is see what are the new skill sets required, what are the new underwriting skill sets required, what are the new claim handling skill sets required, what are the technology skill sets required, what are the sales skills required. They have shifted. That shift has to be adopted, and those people will always be employable. The second point we just said, and I heard Mr. Radhakrishnan speak about AI, ML, coming over. Machine can do processes. Machine cannot bring empathy. If as an individual we don't and have not developed a strong EQ, have not developed empathic skills, then the insurance industry is not for you. Insurance industry comes into play when things go wrong. So in terms of softer skill, we have to look at high empathy. We have to look at high EQ. And if I look at, let's say, business from our perspective, I think the way we are growing and expanding, recruitment would happen. Even the last recruitment that we did on campuses, we not cancelled any, And in fact, in your own campus also, boss, what people you recruited, we are not declined the offer. We are still, going ahead with it. So recruitment will happen and will continue to happen. As a candidate, are you and do you have the skill set to be recruited is the question that you should ask yourself.
So thank you very much. I think we have exceeded our time we have budgeted. I mean, it's been very interesting, very nice. I compliment all the panelists for your outspoken and open views. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting it. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Mr. Radhakrishnan. Bye, Doctor.
Bye. See you. Bye, Girish, and bye, Mr. Srinivas.
Bye. Thank you.